Hey guys, so controlling heat's not really that big of an issue, is it? Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I'm Chris, and obviously I'm missing Carly, but we'll talk about where she's at here in just a second. But this is CNC Reptiles. We are a father and daughter's team that just enjoy keeping ball pythons and sharing our experiences here on YouTube. And so if you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing and potentially liking or leaving a comment down below. And if you're a returning subscriber, guys, thank you so much for your support. We appreciate you coming back and spending time with us every week. So guys, where is Carly, right? So we actually put up a small pool in the backyard, and she and Sophie spent, I don't know, about 10:30 yesterday morning until about 5 o'clock yesterday afternoon swimming, not really reapplying the sunscreen as well as they should have. And so yeah, they're both a little red right now, and Carly's not really in the mood to make videos. So that's where she's at. So she might be missing the next video or two, but we'll definitely have her back pretty soon. But overall, guys, we're starting a new series, or a new mini-series, I guess, and really want to focus on different things that we've learned over the past few months of keeping ball pythons. So we've been keeping ball pythons now for a little over 8 months. By no means does that make us an expert, but we thought that maybe some of the things that we've gone through might potentially help some of you out there as you're getting into keeping ball pythons. So the question of the day is heat really that big of a deal, right? Yeah, heat is really that big of a deal. So when we talk about some different things as far as ball python husbandry, the two big things that come up, are heat and humidity, right? And that's actually what the second video in this series will be on, is what we've learned about humidity. But today is all about heat. And when we talk about heat, there's two different aspects that we really focus on when we're talking about ball pythons. It's the ambient heat, which is the temperature of the room or the area or inside the bin, tub, terrarium, aquarium, whatever you're using to keep your ball pythons. And then there's kind of that hot spot, that the really warm area that we keep, primarily, for when the ball pythons are digesting their meals after they've eaten. So we're actually going to start off with Carly's fun fact. She actually come up with a fun fact about heat. That actually leads us perfectly into why this is important. And so her fun fact for today is ball pythons and snakes are ectotherms. So basically what that means is, guys, they can't regulate their own body temperature. They rely on their environment to regulate that body temperature. So if they need to get really warm to digest, or they need to cool off a little bit, they rely on the environment to do so. And so it's up to us as keepers to ensure that their husbandry is on point as far as heat goes, so that they have kind of the cool end of their enclosure, and then they have a nice warm end or warm spot of their enclosure where they can actually regulate that body temperature as they need to. And you'll find, guys, that if you're providing that, you'll see your ball python kind of move all around the different areas, regulating that body heat as they feel. And so great little fun fact, and really proves home the point of why heat is really so important when we're talking about ball pythons. Now, a couple of videos back, maybe a video back, we did a video on thermostats and thermometers, okay? Keep in mind, guys, that thermometers are really, we use that for information direction, if that makes any sense, okay? So when I come in and I look at a thermometer, whether that's this thermometer here giving me kind of the overall temperature of the room, this thermometer down here that's telling me what Cutie's tub is currently at. I've even got a couple of the little Zoom Ed thermometers that you can stick in the tub. I use those really for directional facing information, okay? I don't use those for the end-all be-all. That's what I keep this for. And we actually did a video on tools. This is probably the #1 tool that most ball pythons or snake keepers just in general need, is a heat gun. It's able to really zero in the heat. If I were to take the temperature of this wall, it says it's at 79.3. This is telling me our room's at 81, right? So the wall itself may be a little cooler than what the actual room is. But this gives me a lot more direction, almost like a sniper, if you will, focus on what I'm trying to get the heat of. So if I come in and all of a sudden I see that, Cutie's tub it says it's 90 degrees in there, man, I need to pull, that's my direction that I need to look at. then I pull this out and I see, okay, what's going on? Is there something going on that I need to change or something like that? Adversely, if it's really cool, we would do the same thing, right? So definitely make sure you have a heat gun, guys, so that will really zero in the different heat areas of the tub, so you can make sure that the front end of the tub or one side of your enclosure is at the temperature that we're looking for. Okay, so you know the two main areas again are the ambient heat in the general room, and then the hot spot area, right? So one of the things that we've learned about heat, guys, especially when we talk about ambient temperature, let's kind of dive into that a little bit more. You know, when you hear about ambient temperature, you hear a lot of people talk about kind of a specific, right? I keep my room at X, whatever X happens to be, okay? One of the things that I've learned over these past few months is it's really hard to hit X number, especially for most people who don't happen to have a reptile room that's keeping it somewhere in their house, like we started out doing. If you'll remember back in the early, when we first got the snakes, we actually had them just set up in kind of this general, in a playroom upstairs, where the ambient temperature actually in the house, we weren't going to keep that at 80, 81, 82, right? We were keeping it more like 72, 73, something like that. And so we had to kind of modify how we rose the ambient temperature for the snakes. And so what I've learned is it doesn't necessarily, shooting for a number isn't necessarily the best thing that we could have done. We shoot for a range. Even now in the reptile room, we shoot for a range. So as long as my ambient temperature is somewhere between like 79 on the very low end, 82 on the high end, as long as I'm somewhere in there, I've noticed that, hey, it actually, the temperature in the tubs, everything are in a viable enough range for my snakes, right? And they continue to thrive, they continue to eat, they move around the tub, and they tend to just be okay as long as I'm in that range. I was really trying in the beginning to, okay, I gotta be at 81 degrees. Guys, it's really hard to hit 81 degrees. Especially if you don't have a room. And even now, like I said, with this room, it's a little difficult sometimes to hit that. So I really shoot for a range in that ambient temperature where I feel my snakes are comfortable. Now, how did I do that before I had the reptile room? Well, we've talked a little bit about this, but I had a space heater. And ultimately what I did is I had this plugged into my Inkbird thermostat that you can see back here. I had it a good ways away from the snake rack, just like this. It'd be pointed at it. It was probably, I had a 6-foot table. This was probably at least 3 to 4 feet away from it. And it would just kind of blow. And the thing is, even though I would keep it on a really low setting, it had to pretty much blow consistently to keep the air somewhat manageable back here for the snakes, and to keep that ambient temperature in, again, that certain range that I wanted to see. So that was one of the ways that I controlled it outside of a snake room or outside of a reptile room where probably most people are going to have their snakes. Now, I'll tell you, definitely be cautious on this. I did have mine plugged into an Inkbird thermostat. It's rated for up to 1200 watts, I believe. I spoke wrong about this last time. Yeah, 1100. Output of up to 1100. So just be careful as you're plugging that in. If you're having to run this at too high a temperature, it's going to put out way too much power for that thermostat to, that thermometer to keep up with, and you could potentially have a fire hazard. So you want to really, really be careful with that, guys. I was able to run this on a really low power. It only puts out about 600 watts or so, and so well within the guardrails of what that Inkbird thermostat or thermometer can actually hold. So that's how I controlled it. Now that we're in the reptile room, I control it a little bit different. So I still have this set up, okay? I still have it set up on my Inkbird thermostat back there. I have it set at 82 degrees, and I have the standard deviation of 1 on either side. So 82 degrees, so when it gets to 83, the heater will shut off. If it gets down to 81, it will kick on. Now, what I found with that, in conjunction with a portable, that you can't see it right now, but down here below I've got a portable AC unit that I've actually got set at 84 degrees. So kind of the same thing. When it gets to 85 degrees on its internal thermostat, it kicks off, it kicks on, cools the air till it gets down to 83 degrees on its internal thermostat, and it'll kick off. Both of those, in conjunction where they are, keep me around 81 degrees or so in the overall room. So it just cycles back and forth. When it gets too cold, this kicks on. When it gets too hot, this kicks on. And as we've gotten into the warmer months, that's where I really had to kind of rely on this air conditioner, portable air conditioning unit, to cool the room down, because the room was getting up really, really hot, and adversely in the tubs was getting really, really too warm. And I found my snakes really at the front of the tub in their water, and they didn't really move. So again, very directional, guys. You got to watch the behavior of your animals. They'll tell you really kind of everything that you need to know. So that's really kind of how we've moved from controlling ambient heat outside of a reptile room to ambient heat inside of a reptile room. Now outside, if you don't want to use a space heater, you could use a ceramic heat emitter that does not give off light, but does give off nice heat. Again, you're going to want to have that on a thermostat of some sort to ensure that you don't just overheat your snakes, because those things really, really can give off a lot of heat. I would advise against bulbs directly at the snakes. I've heard different things. Now, I've never personally used bulbs, but I've heard different things about it potentially hurting their eyes, different things like that. So I've just kind of shied away from bulbs altogether and used, really just stayed with the space heater. But a ceramic heat emitter would be a great way of raising the overall temperature as well. So let's move to that second point now, guys, of the hot spot. That's really where this thing comes in handy, okay? There's a few different things that I've actually found on the hot spot specifically of how I've had to manage the heat tape, or the thermostat controlling the heat tape, I should say, for the hot spot to be where I want it to be. Now again, guys, I look at a range. A lot of people will tell you a hot spot of 90 degrees, right? Man, sometimes that's really hard to keep at 90 100% of the time. So again, a range is what I'm looking at. 89 to 91, right? Somewhere in there. That's really where I want to keep my hot spot. I found with that, the snakes have no problem digesting. They have no problem, again, with a really warm area. It helps raise the temperature inside as well, since you have that hot spot. In the back of mine, typically it's around 85 to 86 degrees in the front. It could be anywhere from 80 to 82, somewhere in there in the very front. And that has to do with the ambient temperature, but also that hot spot releasing heat into the tub, okay? So what I found is the size of them. So these, the small ones, and even to a certain degree these bigger ones, I actually keep my thermostat at about a 92 degrees on the thermostat, and that gives me that gradient that I'm looking at for these, okay? So 92 degrees will give me in between that 89 to 91 degree hot spot. And what you're gonna find is typically the lower levels are typically a little bit warmer than the upper levels. I'm sorry, scratch that, go backwards. The lower levels are a little bit cooler than the upper levels as heat rises, right? So 92 degrees is what I actually have both of these set at, and that gives me the range I'm looking for. Come over here to these 70 series tubs that we just set up. I've actually got this thing set at 94 degrees to be able to get this set where it needs to be. So just, it takes a little bit of time, guys, of dialing in, and that point, an important tip here, make sure you have your enclosures always set up before you bring that first animal home, because again, I've had to go to 94 degrees to get it here, but it's 92 degrees back here. I've also noticed that placement of the probe with the heat tape. So if you remember in one of the last episodes, I showed you that the heat tape with these particular racks, there's a little notch under the heat tape where the probe can slide, and that's where I've had it. Here's the drawback to that. If there was any buckle at all in the heat tape and it wasn't directly in contact with the probe, the heat was, it was getting out of control. So I have since pulled that, and I put the heat tape on top, the probe on top of the heat tape, taped it down with some aluminum foil tape, not just aluminum foil, but aluminum foil tape. And I have had to raise a little bit the degrees, but I'm getting a much more consistent, accurate reading with it actually on top of the heat tape. So, so that kind of covers really, guys, the idea between ambient heat and hot spot heat, right? And when I'm looking for the hot spot, again, use your temp gun. You want it on the actual plastic level, not on top of the substrate. So when you're trying to get a hot spot, and I may show you here in just a second, but when trying to get a hot spot reading, you definitely want to make sure that you're on the plastic or potentially the glass if it's an aquarium. That's where you want to take your reading, because on top of the substrate, it's always going to be cooler than what it is actually where that heat tape is pretty much coming into conjunction with the tub or the terrarium, the aquarium, whatever. So so let's take a look real quick, guys. I just looked in at Cutie before I started. She's kind of giving us an idea of them thermoregulating. So I want to give you a quick shot of that. All right, guys. So here we are, right here in front of Cutie's tub. So real quick, I want to show you. It's saying that it's 84 degrees at the temperature probe inside the tub. So that's actually about midway back. So that's perfect. If it's 84 degrees right there, that probably means it's about 80 to 82 in the front, probably 86 or so in the back. And what I wanted to show you, you can see she's actually not in her hide. She has actually found a spot kind of right here in this back corner. Pull it out just a little more. Don't want to mess with her too much because she just ate. But that spot right there in that back corner, that's where she's found that she just really, that's what she wants to be at right now, right? That's the temperature she's found that's perfect for her at the moment. So just that idea again, guys, of the thermoregulation that they will do within their environment. She's not right on top of the heat spot, which is actually interesting. Usually she is, but she's not right on top of the heat spot. She's kind of right back there in that corner. And that's where she's feeling comfortable right now. And you can see that's where that probe is, guys. That's where it's rating 84 degrees. So she's probably sitting at about 86 degrees, maybe 87 degrees or so. So just a really good example of how snakes will move around their tub. It doesn't necessarily mean they're always going to be right on the hot spot, but they'll move around their tub to really regulate that body temperature however they see fit. All right, guys, so there you have it. That's the few things that we've learned over the last few months about heat and about ambient temperatures and hot spot temperatures and how our female ball pythons react to that. So guys, it just shows you there's different ways that you can actually do this. There's not one only correct way. There's definitely different ways that you can do this, and your ball pythons are still going to thrive, and you're still going to be successful in keeping them happy and keeping them growing, which is what we want. So guys, again, we really appreciate you coming along. Really appreciate you taking this journey with me. The next video is probably going to be more about humidity. I'm hoping Carly will be back by then, but I'm not sure yet. But in either event, guys, have a great day. You guys stay safe out there, and we'll see you next time. Bye.